Okay, if you've ever stepped onto an airplane, you know the feeling. The tight quarters, the shared space, and that one little button. The button that holds the power to make a flight amazing or absolutely miserable. Today, let's dive into the silent war being fought at 30,000 feet. We're cracking the case of the inconsiderate recline.
It seems like such a simple question, right? But the answer, well, it's anything but. So let's just ask it right up front. Should you? Do you really have the right to lean back, even if it means totally invading the tiny bit of space someone else has?
And bam, just like that, you're in it. This quote from consumer advocate Christopher Elliott, it drops us right into that moment we all know and dread. That sudden, violent lurch of the seat in front of you, and that instant spike of pure frustration.
So let's officially crack this case open. Our lead investigator is Christopher Elliott, and he didn't just study this problem from afar. Now, he found himself right on the front lines of this exact conflict and decided he had to get to the bottom of it. Here are the facts of the case. You've got Elliott, who's a pretty tall guy at 6'1". He's crammed into a seat with just 28 inches of seat pitch. That's the tiny distance between your seat and the one in front. So when the passenger ahead tries to recline, he's physically blocked by Elliott's knees. We're not just talking about comfort here. This is about the basic, unchangeable physics of modern flying.
And look, Elliott's experience isn't some rare event. It is a scene playing out on thousands of flights every single day. It's this unspoken war where one simple button can trigger a huge conflict between passengers. And in this war, there are two very, very clear sides.
On one side, you have the etiquette experts, people like Diane Gottsman. They argue that in these ridiculously cramped cabins, reclining your seat is just plain inconsiderate. But then, on the other side, you've got the recliner's point of view, which is honestly pretty powerful. Hey, I paid for this seat, it reclines, I'm going to use it. Both arguments feel right, don't they? And that's exactly why this is such a heated debate.
So what happened? Why has this become such a hot-button issue all of a sudden? It's pretty simple. The space just vanished. Back in the 80s, you had about 34 inches of legroom. You could cross your legs. By the 2020s, on some planes, that has shrunk to as little as 28 inches. That's not just a small change, it's a completely different environment where your knees literally become the back of the seat in front of you.
But here's the wild part. Even with this lack of space, the belief in the right to recline is stronger than ever, especially for people who fly a lot. A poll of frequent flyers found that a whopping 70% believe they should be able to recline. So you see the problem, right? There's this huge disconnect between the physical reality of the plane and what passengers feel they're entitled to. So who's really to blame for all this in-flight tension? Is it the person leaning back or the person whose knees are getting crushed? Well, the investigation takes a really surprising turn here, because the real culprit might not be a passenger at all. This quote just nails it. According to frequent traveler Eric Finkel, the airlines have designed a system where they sell the physical space to the person sitting in it, and they sell the reclining space to the person in front. Think about that. It's the same airspace sold twice. So from this point of view, having passengers fight it out isn't an accident. It's a feature of the business model, not a bug. Okay, so we're all kind of trapped in a broken system. The question is, how do we navigate it without starting an argument at 30,000 feet? Let's lay down some clear, simple rules of engagement for when that recline button should be totally off limits.
All right, let's start with the absolute non-negotiables. During meal service? Come on. A sudden recline can send a tray of hot coffee right into someone's lap. The person behind you has a laptop out? Jerking your seat back can literally snap their screen. And it should go without saying, but if the person is really tall, has an injury, or there are little kids back there, that space is even more critical. In these situations, the answer is simple. Just don't recline.
Now, are there any exceptions? Sure, of course. On a long red-eye flight, we're all trying to get some sleep. Or maybe you have a bad back and you really need to lean back. But even then, that's not a free pass to just slam your seat back. These situations require the one thing that can solve this whole mess, a little negotiation. A simple, hey, do you mind if I recline my seat a little, can make all the difference in the world.
But what if you're the victim here? What's your move when someone reclines on you without so much as a heads up? You don't have to just sit there and suffer. Here is a practical, step-by-step guide to peacefully getting your space back.
This is the game plan Christopher Elliott recommends. First, the path of least resistance. If you spot an empty seat, just move. Boom, problem solved, zero drama. If that's not an option, your next move is to quietly and politely get a flight attendant involved. They are trained for this stuff. And finally, if all else fails, you can try to negotiate directly. A calm, "Excuse me, would you mind bringing your seat up just a little?" usually ends in a compromise that works for everybody.
So, the final verdict in the case of the inconsiderate recline is this: communication. It's the one tool we all have. It costs nothing, and it can prevent almost every single one of these conflicts. Just a moment of thought before you push the button, and a polite word when you need a little more room. It really is that simple.
And with that, case closed. And we owe a big thanks to Christopher Elliott and his team at Elliott Advocacy for the insights. They really gave us the framework to not just understand this problem, but to actually solve it next time we fly.
So, the next time you settle into your airplane seat and your thumb kind of hovers over that recline button, what are you going to do? Now that you've heard the verdict, will you think twice?